There's been a lot of talk lately about inflation, but what is inflation? Let's take a moment to define it. So inflation means it's the increase in the cost of goods that you're consuming or a decrease in your purchasing power. So let's walk through an example. We've all heard the saying of, I remember when a hamburger used to cost a quarter. You might have heard that from your grandfather or someone that lived in that generation. Well, if you go back to the 1920s, $1 would buy you about 4 hamburgers. And if you adjust for inflation, $1 in the 1920s, if you fast forward 100 years later to present day, the rate of inflation at about 3%, that $1 would have turned into about $14 today. That's if you just adjust for inflation over that 100 years. $14 today buys you about 4 hamburgers. So essentially, what cost $1 100 years ago costs $14 today. You didn't get to buy anything more. It's just the purchasing power you have for the exact same products. So that's what inflation is. So when you're in an inflationary environment, what do you need to do? Because the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen a huge increase in inflation and asset prices. This has happened because we've had a big increase in the money supply. $7 trillion of stimulus has entered the US economy, which with all that extra money in circulation, prices have gone up. And then further to that, there's been a tightening of the supply chain, or it's taken more time for a product to get to a shelf. So when products are less available and there's a lot of money in supply, prices then go up. So the example, if you're trying to sell your car and there's very few cars available for sale, and there's a lot of people with a lot of money, you're going to sell your car for a really good price. Okay? So that's the advantage as a seller. It's a disadvantage as a buyer. So in an environment like we're in, what is the best thing you should do with your cash or your capital? Well, I can tell you the best place to be when inflation is high is having your money invested in something that can adjust prices higher. So if you own a bakery and you sell a bun for $1.50, if inflation goes higher, you can sell that bun for $1.75 or $2 and adjust for inflation. The worst place to be is cash sitting in the bank. Because if you have $100 in a bank account and asset prices increased, your $100 stayed the same. So you just lost 10% to inflation. So essentially, the moral of the story is you want to be aware of inflation and ensure that for the capital you don't need to be liquid, that it's invested in asset classes that can provide you protection against inflation. Hope that's helpful.